Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway Los Angeles mayor's race. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. So let's focus on to binge, a spending binge, or a binge. Los Angeles, Rick Caruso, billionaire developer and underdog candidate for Los Angeles mayor, is mounting what might become the city's largest ever voter turnout operation to try to defeat U.S. Rep. Karen Bass, who could be the first black woman to lead the nation's second most populous city. Caruso is deploying several hundred paid canvassers and droves of volunteers to knock on doors, make phone calls, and send texts and emails. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. Let's focus on binge, a spending binge, or a binge, or an eating binge. But in this headline, Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway or change or influence LA mayor's race. From the AP, Michael Blood, October 10th, Los Angeles. Rick Caruso, billionaire developer and underdog candidate for Los Angeles mayor, is mounting what might become the city's largest ever voter turnout operation to try to defeat U.S. Rep. Karen Bass, who could be the first black woman to lead the nation's second most populous city. Caruso is deploying several hundred paid canvassers and droves or lots of volunteers to knock on doors, make phone calls, and send texts and emails. Their targets are identified by campaign staff who rely on demographic research and polling to discover potential supporters among undecided Latinos, Asians, and independents. So we have a billionaire, Rick Caruso, let me say that again, a billionaire who is trying to win in an electoral race for LA mayor, and he is deploying several hundred or lots of paid canvassers or people who go around and knock on doors, make phone calls, send texts and emails. And back to our original question and the headline, Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. So again, binge, what could that mean? Send me your thoughts or ideas. To binge also is a verb. Spending binge. We're back for our second segment. The headline was Billionaire Caruso is the name, on spending binge to sway LA mayor's race. Billionaire Caruso on spending binge to sway LA or Los Angeles mayor's race. So we focused on the phrasal verb, we focused on the verb to binge and I believe to sway. So to binge, what could it mean to binge or go on a spending binge or to binge a show, to binge a series, to binge something on Netflix, to binge eat. So this could be a noun or an adjective. In this headline, Billionaire Caruso on a spending binge to sway the LA mayor's race. It's a noun, to go on a binge. This is to consume something without control. without control to spend or consume or watch without stop and without much or with little control. So, billionaire Caruso, he's a billionaire, and he has the money to spend lots of dollars on I believe in the article it was canvassers and volunteers. I guess volunteers, you're not spending money on volunteers, but canvassers. So I guess what is a canvasser? This happens in Brazil too, but people on the street knocking on doors, passing out pamphlets, people who are spreading a message or trying to figure out or get an idea of who is voting for who, and they're not neutral, right? They're not neutral people. They're being paid by this candidate to try and sway people's votes and their opinions, trying to influence their opinion, and hopefully, in his perspective, vote for him. This guy Caruso. I have no idea who Caruso is. I'm not from L.A. I'm not from Los Angeles. I'm from California, but if I'm being honest, I have no idea who this guy is. But yeah, he's spending lots of money, uncontrollable amounts of money to pay people to go out and influence the public opinion in Los Angeles. And it's a mayor's race. So this is a local election. This is not a state election. So to binge, we did to sway. I just talked about it, but we'll slow down again. To sway is to influence or persuade someone. So you can have your opinion swayed. You can sway someone else's opinion. You can sway a election or a mayor or governor or presidential or congressional race. And that just means to influence it, to have some impact, some significant impact. What else in there? Because I read a few sentences. We did not read the whole story. We never do because I cannot legally do that. But there was an expression or a word here, the underdog. The underdog. Let's see if I can find it in the headline. It's mounting what might become the city's largest targets. I'm not seeing underdog. Where is it? Rick Caruso. Rick Caruso is his name. Billionaire developer. The first sentence. Rick Caruso, billionaire developer and underdog candidate for the Los Angeles mayor race. So this could be a noun or an adjective. In this sentence, it's an adjective. It's describing candidate. He's the underdog candidate. So what could it mean to be an underdog? Not the favorite. You're the person in a competition who is not favored to win, not expected to win. We use this term a lot in sports. In any competition, someone is the underdog if they are not the favorite. Sometimes there is a competition where there's two equals, right? I'm recording this in October the 24th, 2022. In 6 days, there's an election in Brazil where I live between two candidates, Lula and Bolsonaro. And there's no underdog in this election, right? Both of these guys are very famous. Both of them, as I sit here recording this, the expectation is a very close or tight race. Okay, so there is no underdog in this competition just because there's not really a heavy favorite. So we use this anytime there is someone who is favored or a favorite to win something. The person who is not favored is the underdog. This is a big theme in American film, and I don't know about Brazilian film or how the world values the underdog, but in the United States, there is a big value for hoping the underdog will win. An example would be sports, right? If the Yankees, the New York Yankees, are playing a team, or the Los Angeles Lakers, or before Tom Brady left the Patriots, the New England Patriots, whoever's playing against those teams usually is described as an underdog, and usually people are rooting or cheering or hoping that the underdog wins in American culture. I don't know in Brazil, so you have to let me know or give me some Brazilian culture here. I've been here for 4 years, but I can't notice. I'm not sure if there is a strong cultural value for being the underdog. It's funny too because the United States globally is never the underdog, but for some reason we like to celebrate underdog stories. What else can we find in here that might be difficult or confusing in the 3 or 4 sentences that I read? To deploy. To deploy. This is the first sentence in the second paragraph if you're following on video. Otherwise, this, I believe, was just the second. Yeah, the second sentence. So Caruso, the dude running for mayor, is deploying several hundred paid canvassers or operatives. Deploying, to send out, to send out, to put people with a mission into the field or into the action. So to deploy, it was a present progressive verb here. Caruso is deploying, but soldiers get deployed to war. That's the nature of this word. It gives the audience a feeling of like going into battle. And politics is unfortunately very often framed like that, as if it were a battle or a war, and in some ways it is. But so deploying, to deploy, to send out. What else? Droves of volunteers. Droves of volunteers. Caruso is deploying several hundred paid canvassers or operatives and droves of volunteers to knock on doors, make phone calls, and send texts and emails. Droves is just a fancy word for a lot or lots. He's deploying lots of volunteers or a lot of volunteers. My grammar here is probably not great. If a native speaking Cambridge professor is hearing me say lots or a lot of, I'm sure they would not be so happy about that, but that's how we speak. To rely on, RELY on. Their targets are identified by campaign staff who rely on demographic research and polling. To rely on is to depend on, to trust, confiar, depender. We use this word a lot. You'll see it with characteristics of products like electronics or cars, machinery, computers, cell phones. You'll hear or you'll read about reliability. What's the car's reliability? How long will it last? Will it break? Will it survive? Is it durable? So reliable, reliability, and the phrasal verb here is to rely on, to trust. Anything else in this short fraction of an article from the AP? Oh, to ferret out, in the same sentence, their targets are identified by campaign staff who rely on demographic research and polling, or questions, right? Lots of questions, polling, to ferret out potential supporters among undecided Latinos, Asians, and independents. To ferret out, I have never used this phrasal verb in my life, and I never intend to. I've never read it before. I'm recording this at a separate time from the first segment, so I imagine I had to Google what this meant, to ferret out, ferret, out. This means to find something through or after careful searching. To find something after or through careful searching. A ferret, I know what a ferret is. It's an animal, I believe, that hunts snakes. I could be wrong about that. It's a little dangerous to speculate without having the correct answer in front of me or without being certain. But so you can imagine a ferret, this little squirrel thing, looking or hunting, right? Hunting for snakes or little animals to eat. So to ferret out, that's the visual, I guess, is to hunt, to find, to seek out. And polling, actually, polling was before ferret out. Polling or polls, right? Brazilians now are focused on polls, especially Bolsonaro's kind of following. And polling is when people, many different forms, right? In Brazil, I believe usually it's a phone call, but this is when people are calling or visiting your house or sending you information or asking you on the street. These are neutral people asking you, who do you intend to vote for? How big is your family? How much money do you make? What's your income? And they're trying to determine the demographic interest and details and characteristics of groups of people. So usually it's a journalistic company or publication, or it could be a company like in the U.S. we have Pew, where they're a company that is interested, or their objective is to gauge or determine the interest and reality of human beings. And so they, send lots of questionnaires, or maybe at universities they have people invite you to come share your opinion, or again in Brazil, I believe it's phone calls. I believe usually it's a phone call. So that's it, actually. From what I read, I don't have any more very predictable, difficult vocab words. Again, you can give me feedback if I missed something that was confusing or unfamiliar, or even, even a little familiar, but you need some guidance or help maybe to use one of these words. So you can reach out or contact me to give me feedback on anything I missed that could be helpful. So now our question segment. Some questions here. What's worse, in your opinion? A billionaire candidate spending lots of money to win an election, or an elected politician using money from billionaire friends and investors and contributors to win an election, right? And I believe the rules in the U.S. and Brazil are very different. Well, maybe not so different, but on paper, a bit different. So I guess the question is like this guy Caruso, he's a billionaire using his own money to finance things that are important for winning elections. And this one, it didn't mention. It does mention phone calls, texts, and emails, all of those things, right? Demographic research. It doesn't mention advertisements on TV, right? It doesn't mention that. But so this guy's spending his own money, allegedly, apparently, according to this AP article. Or someone like Lula or Bolsonaro, or conventionally, most people are not billionaires not even millionaires, but how do you run a successful or a good campaign for in politics? You need money, and if you don't have it, you need to get it somehow. If you need to get it and someone gives it, they're gonna expect something in return. That's not what it's, you might not, that might be illegal to say that part out loud when you give money, but that's the expectation, and that is usually the result, right? Companies in the U.S. and companies are in election campaign finance laws or rules or regulations in the United States. They're the same as individual citizens. They can give money without limit, I believe, to whoever they want in a campaign. Usually, and not always, usually they give money to both a Republican and a Democrat in any election, because you might not know who's going to win. Sometimes, if you know, or if the polling is very strong for one or the other, you might just give campaign money to the one who's projected to win. But that in many elections, it's hard to know for certain who's going to win. So they end up giving money typically to both parties, because why would they do that? Clearly, they're not putting their money based on values, because you wouldn't find common values in the United States between a Trump supporting Republican and a Democrat. It maybe 20 years ago you might find some common ground. Not anymore. There's no way. It's just not possible now. So if you're giving money to both parties, clearly you're expecting that your money will buy you influence or favor with whoever wins. In Brazil, I've been studying election finance out of curiosity, and it's a little bit different. But if you were a billionaire in Brazil, I believe you can only spend 10% of your income. I don't know about your capital gains, right? That's different than income. I believe it is. So in Brazil, it's 10%, and I'm not sure exactly how individual citizens, especially very rich citizens, give their money to political campaigns in Brazil. But I imagine it's a common theme in any democracy that allows people to donate any amount of money to election campaigns. So again, back to the question. That was a long detour. What's worse, in your opinion? A billionaire candidate spending lots of money to win an election against people who are not billionaires, or an elected politician using money from billionaires, friends and investors and contributors to win an election? Number two, have you ever stopped to talk to canvassers or volunteers who are promoting a political or social cause? And if you have, what was it like? If you haven't, why not? Have you ever stopped to talk to canvassers or volunteers, or people on the street who kind of have the pamphlets or are trying to sway opinions or influence your vote about a political candidate or a social cause? What was it like? If you have? If you haven't, why not? Number three. I don't have this written down. There is no number three, but I'm going to give a number three. Can you think of any good reason why someone would lie to a neutral party who is calling to ask about who you're going to vote for. And clearly, I'm asking this because this has happened in Brazil. I have never considered this. This has never been a reported on issue in the United States or anywhere. From what I have researched, I have never seen this happen before. Bolsonaro supporters were allegedly being dishonest with the data folia or the pesquisadores, the people researching and doing the polling on the first round of elections in Brazil. I don't know why someone would do that. So, without going too deep into that mess, could you think of any good reason, or any reason, maybe not any good reason, but any reason why someone would lie to a polling researcher, not just about politics, but about anything, about your demographic? Hey, what ethnicity are you? What's your income? What do you think about electric cars? Any of these. There's lots of different polling. Go on Google and type in polling research, USA or something. And I don't know how common this is in Brazil, but there's lots of polling done in the United States with a few very big companies that are specifically intended to provide data, just data. And whoever wants to use the data can use the data. I use the data. But so those are the three questions today. Thank you. If you have any response, I hope you have responses. If you have any thoughts, hopefully you can start to process them in English. And if you want to interact with me, if you want to practice producing English, either speaking or writing, go ahead, leave me an audio, send an email with a video, any of the ways that it's possible to reach out or contact me. Please do so, and I will, especially now because the audience is probably very small and limited, I will give you feedback on how your production was of using